ABC, if you just want to show future influencers arguing, just say that. Like, why do we have to mask the show with this phony Bachelor narrative? Hi everyone, my name's Dimitri and welcome back to DimitriTube. I am back, the mustache is back, and I'm ready to talk about some Bachelor. Matt James, week 6. Let's talk about it. Now, this review is going to be pretty quick because I thought this episode was kind of annoying, except the last 15 minutes. And if you've been watching my reviews, you know why I enjoyed the last 15 minutes. But if you're new here and don't know, you just got to keep watching the review. Also, you all know I'm not really a big Katie fan, but I know some of you are. So don't worry, I'm not going to drag Katie too hard in this review. Let's get started. As always, if you're enjoying these reviews, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. Oh, and just one more thing before we get started. As you all know, there's been a lot of controversy surrounding Rachel lately and whether or not she's racist. And it has become such an elephant in the room that I couldn't just keep doing these reviews without addressing it. If you want to know my thoughts on Rachel, I created a whole video on that and I will post the link above. In the video, I go in depth on the accusations against her, and I also go in depth in terms of a discussion on race. So if you're sensitive to that kind of thing, do not watch the video. So the episode starts and we're going back to the 2-on-1 with Jessenia and MJ. This 2-on-1 was just so unnecessary and I was completely over it the entire time. When this argument was happening, it really had me thinking for a moment. Am I watching a show about love or am I watching a show about future influencers arguing? ABC, if you just want to show future influencers arguing, just say that. Like, why do we have to mask the show with this phony Bachelor narrative? But anyway, MJ gets sent home, and y'all are gonna hate me for saying this, but when MJ got sent home, she looked good. She literally looked like 80s royalty on that red carpet. Her hair was extra big. She had on that blazer dress. Her legs looked amazing. And then on that red carpet, like, she looked good during that exit. Matt gives Jessenia the rose, and then we move on to the ceremony. Now, this was a very big missed opportunity for me, and it's part of the reason this season has just been so annoying. I would have loved to see that conversation between Jessenia and Matt after he gave her the rose, but of course, we didn't get to see it. Now, us as viewers, we got to see the majority of the storyline as to why they were arguing, but from Matt's perspective, it was mostly Jessenia's word against MJ's word, so it would have been interesting to see why he believed Jessenia over MJ. So then we go into the rose ceremony, and Matt sends home Maggie, Brittany, and Ryan. And the first thing I thought was, wow, not Matt sending home 3 women of color. Now, I was kind of sad that Ryan got sent home, but at the same time, I was also happy because we need more women to go home. Apparently, we're a couple weeks away from hometowns, and we still have 11 contestants. And honestly, as I'm thinking back to the episode, this first 30 minutes was just an extra long rose ceremony. Now we're moving into a one-on-one with Katie and Serena C. So Serena C accuses Katie of taking time away from Matt through all of her antics, and she also accuses her of not being there for the right reasons. And then Katie responds and calls her pathetic. So literally the same thing with MJ and Jessenia. I am over this bullying narrative and I'm ready to move on, but of course this just gets opened back up. During the argument, Serena C says, "Inserting yourself into everyone's business that's not even your own. You're lighting all these little fires everywhere. You're the freaking arsonist. How is telling Matt about being a bully and being toxicity and mean girls? That doesn't help your relationship at all." Katie responds, "I'm not gonna let mean girls be mean girls in this house. I didn't name drop. So the girls who ever want to tell their story can tell it. I didn't drop MJ's name. I didn't drop Anna's name." Now, I think I finally figured out why I have an issue with Katie's behavior. I know a lot of you are Katie stans and you're shocked that I'm not on the Katie bandwagon. Serena C did make a good point. Katie is inserting herself into other people's business that's not hers. Now, the other reason I think just comes down to dynamics between men and women. So Katie told on the house so Matt could swoop in and save the day. Katie was basically like, "Oh, the house is toxic, girls are bullying, Matt, come in and save us." And I just feel like if this was The Bachelorette, it wouldn't have gone down like that. Imagine if you had a guy and then he went and told The Bachelorette, oh, the house is toxic and people are bullying. So this is just my opinion. I feel like if the genders were reversed or if this was The Bachelorette, I just don't think it would have gone down the same way. Also, just one more thing I want to mention before we move on. So Katie says that she did not name drop. And no, she did not name drop, but she did mention the new girls. But there are only 4 new girls. So you might as well have name dropped. And remember in my previous review when I said, it's interesting Brittany got called first, I wonder if the scenario would have went down the same way if Brittany was not called first. Y'all remember that? So how did Matt know to call Brittany first? Especially if he had no idea about the toxicity in the house. I believe Katie when she says she did not name drop, but I'm pretty sure a producer name dropped and told him to call out Brittany first. Now we're moving on to a one-on-one date with Pieper. So to start off the date, Matt and Pieper drive into the woods in the dark, and Matt tells Pieper to grab the flashlight and then flip a switch. Now, you would never take a woman on a date and tell her to do that. That is some horror movie type of stuff. Now, I do think Matt does like Pieper because Pieper's the only one who's gotten the opportunity to ride in the G-Wagon. And out of all of the contestants, they are the cutest couple. Possibly him and Heather could be, but I gotta wait till next episode to see more of them. So after Pieper flips the switch, the lights to a fair/amusement park turn on. Now, this is 100% a dream date for me. They get a whole amusement park to themselves. Like, that is a dream date type of situation. Like, who wouldn't love that? Now, moving on to the dinner portion of the date, I thought Pieper's dress was really ugly. Did y'all like it? Let me know below in the comments. And also, for those of you who know makeup, help me out. Was her eyeshadow just too dark, or was it like not blended enough? Like, something looked a little off, but I don't know too much about makeup, so I'm probably not the one to talk about it. Also, side note, if any of you watching this ever decide to go on reality television, if you're a woman, please make sure you know how to do your makeup because they use really strong lighting on these shows. So if your makeup looks bad, it's gonna look even worse through the camera. But anywho, so during the date, Pieper explains that her family tends to show love through actions, not necessarily words, and she would prefer her family show more love through words. And she tells Matt she's falling in love with him, and she ends up getting the rose. Now, Pieper's explanation was just very vague for me. I think she didn't really have a sob story to tell, so she was just kind of reaching for something, but the whole explanation was just vague. I don't know if y'all remember this, but during Pieper's first impression, she said that her father wanted to keep her last name, James, so that's why Matt James is perfect, because she wouldn't have to change her last name. I really wish she would have talked about that more. That would have been more interesting than the conversation they had. Now, it's clear to me that they have a connection and there's definitely some strong chemistry there. I'm not quite sure if she's gonna make top 4, but there's definitely something there. And last thing before we move on, Temecula Road. So after Matt gives Pieper the rose, they move to a different room. The country music artist Temecula Road is playing for them. So this is my 5th season watching this franchise, and that was the best sounding musical artist I've heard since watching the show. I normally don't even listen to country music, but I'm definitely gonna look up their album and stream it. Okay, this was probably the most frustrating group date of the entire season. For the group date, they go bowling. Now, don't get me wrong, bowling is a great, fun date, but we're going to hometowns in like 2 weeks. They really need a date that's more conducive to Matt getting to know the women. So then Chris Harrison comes, he divides the girls into 2 teams and turns it into a competition. One team wins, one team loses, and the team that wins gets more time with Matt. So then fast forward, the losing team finds out that they also get to join in on the night portion of the date as well, because Matt wants to spend more time with them. That whole finasco was the biggest waste of time. I'm trying to get to know these women a little more, and ABC is wasting time with this foolishness. And we know this because when we get to the night portion of the group date, they fast forward through the whole thing and we only get to see a little bit of 3 one-on-ones. Michelle ends up getting the group date rose, but the conversation Michelle and Matt had was very generic. Like, I didn't understand why she got the group date rose over the 8 other women. Again, this just goes back to my greater theory that Matt cannot hold down a show. So the producers keep editing out all the one-on-ones. Next, we're moving on to a one-on-one with Katie. You all know I'm not the biggest fan of Katie, but I promise I will not drag her that much. They bring in Matt's best friend, Tyler C. Tyler C was also a contestant on Hannah B's season of The Bachelorette. Now, this part made absolutely no sense. Matt says, I've seen this process work for Tyler. And I was so confused because Tyler got his heart broken on his season. Maybe Matt meant in terms of being a social media influencer. I don't know. Anyways, moving on. For their date, Tyler C is getting a massage and Matt and Katie are mic'd up to the masseuse and they can instruct her on what to do. Now, this date was so weird to me. I get it. It's supposed to be a prank, but when you finally get an opportunity to have a one-on-one with Matt, your date is spying on his best friend during a massage? Honestly, to me, ABC just wanted an excuse to bring in Tyler C, and not only that, they wanted an excuse for him to take his shirt off. Now we're moving on to the dinner portion of the date, and y'all, we gotta talk about Katie's outfit. Katie wore a cream sweater with a black miniskirt over either long black tights or long black stockings. Now, if you've been watching my reviews, you know that one of the reasons I love this show is because how over-the-top glamorous it is. And Katie served us absolutely no glamour. It honestly looked like she was going to Starbucks. And that's how I know she's not into Matt. Like, girl, you were competing against 10 other women. Could you give us a little more razzle dazzle? And I know a lot of you are gonna argue,
oh, that's just Katie's personality. That's just who she is. She just wants to be herself.
and don't get me wrong, I understand your argument, but me personally, I feel like there is nothing wrong with going over the top sometimes. I'm not asking Katie to wear a ball gown every day, but if you want to throw one on for this nice dinner date with Matt, I don't think there's a problem with that. And I don't think you're losing yourself or your personality if you do that every now and then. Oh, but in Katie's defense, Katie's hair and makeup looked really good. It actually was probably the best I've seen it so far on the season. And I'm sure you all have heard the rumors. If not, I'm not going to tell you because this is not a spoiler YouTube page. But if this is the future of what we're going to see from Katie, I'm going to be disappointed because y'all know I love over the top glamour. So then after that, Matt sends her home. Not surprising, they had no connection. And when Katie gets sent home, she doesn't even cry in the Uber XL. So just even more proof that she was not even into Matt. So if you don't know who Heather is, Heather was on Colton's season of The Bachelor. And as I've told y'all many times, that was the first season of The Bachelor that I watched. Now, I am not at all trying to be shady, but this is about to sound shady. Heather was pretty forgettable on Colton's season. Heather's storyline during Colton's season was that she had never been kissed. And then she was set up with Colton for a one-on-one date, and then she finally got her first kiss under these beautiful fireworks. During her season, she was not involved in any of the drama from what I can remember, and then she makes it to like top 7, top 8, and one day out of the blue, she just hops on a train and says she's leaving, with zero explanation why. So I'm not saying she's forgettable as a person, but just her character on the show was very forgettable. But anyway, now she's coming back because Hannah B, who was the Bachelorette a couple seasons ago, said they would be a good match. Now, it's clear that ABC brought in Heather just to shake things up, but we'll just have to wait and see until next week what actually happens. Now, did y'all notice that they dedicated like 10 to 15 minutes of this episode just to Heather? Abigail hasn't even gotten that much time yet. So then we move on to the cocktail party and Heather arrives. When Heather arrives, she interrupts Pieper's date and you could tell Pieper is freaking out on the inside. The look that she gave Heather was so disrespectful. But Pieper was a trooper. She brushed it off and let Heather interrupt. And when Heather arrived, none of the girls knew who she was except Serena P. I don't blame the girls for not knowing who Heather was. Like I said earlier, she was like pretty forgettable in terms of the show. And I have to give a kudos to Serena P. During this moment, I loved Serena P and how she handled the situation. Out of all these women, Serena P knew who Heather was. So it's clear that Serena P did her homework. And I like when people do their homework and do their research before they decide to go on The Bachelor. Next, if you notice, Serena P played it cool. She was like, oh, that's Heather. And she was calm, cool, and relaxed. She was not at all freaking out and having an episode like Pieper's about to have. I love that. That's how you're supposed to play it. Never let him see you sweat. And that's something I personally go by in life as well. Like, I thoroughly enjoyed how unbothered Serena P was. And before we wrap up, did y'all think I forgot? Yep, outfit of the episode. So this week, I gotta give it to Kit. Kit is wearing this gold or bronze dress with the high shoulders, super flashy, and her makeup looks amazing. Kit looks really good. Like, this is definitely the outfit. And I also have to give an honorable mention to Abigail. Abigail is wearing this like 1970s blue jumpsuit. She looks really good, and I hope on next week's episode we can see more of this outfit. And that is all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this review, please go ahead and pound that like button, pound that subscribe button, and ring that notification bell. And I will see you all next time. Have a good one. Bye.